With a news update on WHTC Holland's Cool FM, I'm Gary Stevens. For the second time in a 30-hour span, a train crash was reported on the tracks between Zeeland and Hudsonville. Around 10:30 last night, an eastbound CSX freight train collided with a semi, which had been stuck at the 76th Avenue crossing while making a turn from westbound Chicago Drive. The force of the crash split the trailer in half, while the semi-driver, a 61-year-old man from Hart, was able to exit the cab before the collision and escaped injuries. No one on board of the train was hurt either. Hazmat teams were dispatched to the scene for a possible fuel leak from the train's damaged engine, while CSX had to dispatch an engine from the Grand Rapids yard to move the cars out of the area. It took most of the overnight hours to clean up the scene. On Tuesday afternoon, a 48-year-old Hudsonville man sustained minor injuries after his SUV was struck by a train at a business crossing off of Chicago Drive between 64th and 56th Avenues. 2 engineers on board the train were not hurt. Both incidents remain under investigation by the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office and CSX. The founder of one of the Holland area's biggest private attractions has passed away. Vernon Valdir died at his home on Monday at the age of 100. He founded the Tulip Gardens that bears the family name in 1947 after serving in the U.S. Army during World War II, devoting his attention to the Northside Enterprise full-time 3 years later. It literally grew from 100 red tulip and 300 white tulip bulbs to more than 6 million tulips from 850 varieties today. For years, Mr. Valdir devoted more than 60 hours a week to the farm, which expanded to include the sales of Delftware and wooden shoes, along with bison meat, with 2 buffaloes grazing on site. Visitation is slated for Saturday morning from 10 to 11:45 a.m. ahead of a 12 noon funeral service at North Holland Reformed Church with a private interment at Pilgrim Home Cemetery. The family of the 82-year-old woman who was found murdered outside of her suburban Grand Rapids home this week has identified her as Peggy Dreyer. A 43-year-old man who is a person of interest in her killing is in the Grant County Jail in Indiana after being arrested by state police there. He had been living at her home and has a history of mental health struggles, including being diagnosed with schizophrenia, and has a criminal history including assault convictions. The Calhoun County Sheriff's Office has arrested a 46-year-old woman after she allegedly pointed a stolen handgun at a 48-year-old man and threatened him. It happened just before 5 Wednesday morning during an argument over a missing cell phone. She threatened to kill him when he tried to get the phone, and he ran off and called 911. Deputies say she was heavily intoxicated when she was arrested, and she is facing charges of felonious assault and possession of a stolen handgun. Wyoming police are searching for a shooting suspect after an 18-year-old man was shot just before 5 yesterday morning on 28th Street near Clyde Park Avenue. The victim was shot several times, hospitalized in stable condition. Police have not released information on the description of the suspect. A new Justice Center is being proposed in Van Buren County as part of the facilities master plan there.
County officials say there are structural safety and space concerns with the historic Van Buren County Courthouse in Paw Paw. Commission Vice Chair Paul Shincarroll says they developed the draft facilities master plan to address the issues, and they would consolidate underutilized space across 3 campuses. Commissioner Gail Patterson-Gladney says they need to have a new courthouse, and she assured South Haven leaders this week that the satellite courthouse in that city will not be impacted.
There have been studies that show the effect that closing that courthouse would have on our area. So we hope that we can serve the residents on this side of the county and continue to do that in the future.
I'm Michael Arning.
2 men from Colombia are facing federal drug trafficking charges in Grand Rapids. Carlos Ipia, known as Indio, and Manuel Orozco are charged with conspiracy to distribute cocaine. The investigation started in late 2024 after a confidential U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration source met with the suspects in Colombia. Federal officials say Ipia and Orozco are the first suspects ever extradited from Colombia to the federal courthouse in Grand Rapids. Officials say the cocaine was intended to be distributed in West Michigan. On the heels of help comes heels of hurt. Such is the case for those affected by damage caused from storms this past April in 27 Michigan counties, including the southeast corner of Allegan County. On June 2nd, President Trump approved Governor Whitmer's request for a major disaster declaration stemming from those storms, which included heavy rain, snowmelt, and 9 confirmed tornadoes during an 11-day period across 43 counties. Michigan disaster recovery centers are still open to connect disaster assistance with those eligible to receive it, with specialists from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the U.S. Small Business Administration helping survivors apply for FEMA's individual assistance and SBA disaster loan programs. However, scam artists posing as FEMA agents have been known to go into affected neighborhoods, promising help while asking for personal information. Daniel Bernardi, a FEMA spokesman, says his agency is well aware of these criminal elements lurking around.
If somebody knocks on your door and you did not apply for assistance, and all of a sudden someone's like, hey, I'm from FEMA, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, well, that's funny. I didn't apply for FEMA assistance. Your information may have been compromised, at which point give us a call at our helpline, 800-621-3362, and we can help you through that process. Also, perhaps notify the local authorities.
A deadline for many aid efforts as a result of this federal disaster declaration is next Thursday. The Citizens Research Council of Michigan claims the new state budget for fiscal 2027 is between $600 and $900 million short of state funding. CRC's senior research associate Bob Schneider says they found a gap of $672 million between the appropriations and revenues gathered. He says the state has nearly $500 million in the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserve, or SOAR, fund that could address the gap. State officials insist the budget will balance and that there are lapses that will return the shortfall. Governor Whitmer's office says implications that the spending plan is not balanced simply false. A U.S. Senate committee has passed a bill from freshman Democratic Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Holly that would ban the sale of vehicles made by companies with significant ties to China in the U.S. The legislation would also prevent the sale of connected software and hardware that is at least 15% owned by China in the United States. The measure is not expected to be passed by the full Senate, though. It would ban Mercedes-Benz from selling vehicles in the U.S., as Mercedes-Benz has just under 20% of its ownership connected to Chinese individuals or entities. Michigan Gaming Control Board Chairman Jim Ananich is stepping down from the post on August 1st. He was appointed to the board by fellow Democrat Gretchen Whitmer in April 2025, previously the state Senate minority leader and a state representative. Ananich, currently the president and CEO of the Greater Flint Health Coalition. Ananich is also known for criticizing then Governor Rick Snyder, for attending the Tulip Time Festival while the state was in some legislative negotiations, saying that state matters trump those of local festivities. The Michigan Department of Health and Human Services says the number of cyclosporiasis cases in the state is now up to 7,171, with 102 people hospitalized as a result. Most of the cases have been in southeast Michigan, but it has spread to most of the southern Lower Peninsula. It is an intestinal parasite that causes sudden and explosive diarrhea. No cause has been pinpointed yet. Detroit Mayor Mary Sheffield says she is cautiously hopeful that the Gordie Howe International Bridge will open on Monday, but is still concerned the U.S. federal government might delay the opening of the second span between Detroit and Windsor again. It was supposed to open in June.
We're kind of waiting for the indication that things are going to proceed, and then we'll move forward accordingly.
Canadian officials this week canceled a joint ceremony with the Americans that was set for Friday. They'll hold their own tomorrow. And Ottawa also says that it remains committed to opening the bridge on July 27th. Hyu Lee's three-run homer in the fourth inning broke a 1-1 tie, powering the Tigers past the Cubs at Wrigley Field last night 5-1.
3-0 pitch, high fly ball, left center field, deep, back, Crow looking up, gone! Hyu Lee, 2-out, three-run home run.
While Chicago is off today before facing the Pirates in Pittsburgh tomorrow evening, Detroit hosts the Kansas City Royals at Comerica Park tonight, with coverage from Dan Dickerson at 6:15 p.m. on WHTC Holland's Cool FM. Andrew Benintendi and Chase Mydroth each had a pair of RBI singles, as the White Sox beat the Texas Rangers in Arlington last night 4-2. Chicago entertains the Houston Astros at Wright Field tomorrow evening. Jack Garevich's two-run homer in the third inning snapped a 1-1 tie, and the Peoria Chiefs went on to down the visiting West Michigan Whitecaps yesterday 7-2. The series at Dozer Park continues this evening. Get the latest news anytime at WHTC.com.